Have you ever found yourself lost on Instagram when you should be finishing an important task? Or maybe, as soon as you wake up, the urge to hit the snooze button is stronger than any plan to be productive that day. Don't worry, you're not alone. In a world filled with distractions, staying focused has become one of today's biggest challenges. Procrastination, which feels like an old, intrusive friend, always shows up at the wrong time, whispering for us to put things off until later. Even though procrastination is something we all face, it's not just about a lack of discipline. In reality, we're all up against an overload of stimuli. Social media, endless notifications, and the chase for instant gratification have tipped the pleasure-discomfort scale in our brains. When this scale leans too much to one side, our motivation to accomplish important tasks plummets. But the good news is that, by understanding how all this works, we can take back control. And that's exactly what we'll talk about here. We're going to look at how to break out of this cycle and get back to being in charge of our choices, instead of just reacting to the distractions that modern life throws at us. Ready to dive in, the alarm rings. And there it is. The first battle of the day, that irresistible urge to hit the snooze button and get a few more minutes of sleep, is something most of us know well. That temporary feeling of comfort seems so appealing, but at the same time, it comes with a dilemma. Do we start the day proactively, or give in to a few more minutes of rest? This small, everyday moment ends up being our first challenge, which we face right when we open our eyes, and whoever wins this battle, in a way, sets the tone for the rest of the day. Now, imagine that instead of giving in to the snooze temptation, we decide to turn this moment into something positive. Creating a simple but intentional morning ritual can be a game changer, something like drinking a glass of water upon getting up, stretching, or taking a deep breath before setting our feet on the ground. These small actions, as minor as they may seem, have the power to completely shift how we approach the start of our day. They're not just automatic gestures. They're a way to signal to our brain that we're ready to face whatever comes. Overcoming this first challenge is like giving a jump start to set the day on a more intentional path. It may not seem like much, but each small victory brings us closer to a more productive and meaningful day. When we decide to win this small battle, we're building a solid foundation to handle what lies ahead, setting the pace and preparing the ground for the rest of our activities. Imagine that every time you look at your phone and see a new notification, you're entering a real labyrinth. This labyrinth is full of endless paths. Each feed you scroll through, each video you watch, each message you open is like a corridor that keeps pulling you further away from what you originally intended to do. It's easy to get lost in these paths, and before we know it, we're wandering in circles, unsure of how we lost our original focus. Our brain, meanwhile, is designed to react to these stimuli. Every time a new notification appears, our reward system gets activated, releasing dopamine, which gives us a small rush of pleasure. This mechanism, which was useful in ancient times to help us stay alert to anything relevant, now turns us into prisoners of a continuous stream of updates and newness. The impact of this is clear on our ability to concentrate. With so many distractions around, our attention becomes fragmented, and it's increasingly hard to dive into a state of deep productivity. It's essential to remember that this struggle to stay focused isn't a personal failing. It's a direct reflection of the design of these platforms, which are made to keep our attention for as long as possible. Understanding this is the first step toward freeing ourselves from this labyrinth and regaining control over our attention. Dopamine is often known as the pleasure hormone, but it's more than that. It's like an engine that drives us to pursue rewards. When we feel that urge to check our phone or seek a quick distraction, it's this engine motivating us, always on the hunt for something that might bring a bit of instant pleasure. This is key to understanding how dopamine is closely tied to addiction, to quick, shallow stimuli, like social media or a short video that makes us laugh, give us an instant sense of satisfaction. This feels incredibly good in the moment, but it comes with a cost. As we indulge in these quick pleasures, our capacity to motivate ourselves for tasks that require more effort is gradually worn down. Working on an important project or studying something complex becomes much harder when our brain is conditioned to always seek easy, immediate pleasure. It's as if our motivation tank is being drained with each small, easy reward we chase. This imbalance between the constant search for easy rewards and the need to tackle more challenging tasks often leads us to procrastinate. The brain, conditioned by dopamine, tends to avoid the discomfort that comes with prolonged effort and prefers to stay in a cycle of quick rewards. Understanding this connection helps us see that procrastination isn't just about lack of willpower or discipline. It's a reflection of the chemical and behavioral imbalance that easy stimuli create in us. One way to break this cycle is to try limiting our exposure to these stimuli and start building small daily wins that aren't tied to instant pleasure. Setting time without social media access or dedicating just 10 minutes to an important task are good ways to begin. Each small action completed, even if initially uncomfortable, helps redefine how our brain reacts to effort and pleasure, restoring the balance that's been lost. Imagine a scale. On one side, there's pleasure, and on the other, discomfort. Our brain is constantly trying to balance these two sides. However, in a world where pleasurable stimuli are always within reach, it's easy to end up weighing one side of the scale too heavily when we constantly seek easy pleasure, whether through social media, TV series, or any other form of instant entertainment. We end up creating an imbalance. This excess of pleasure leaves us unmotivated for activities that require effort, often leading to a feeling of emptiness and dissatisfaction. Once the stimulus fades, the issue with superstimuli is that they condition us to avoid any kind of discomfort. Activities that require effort, patience, and concentration often get left behind simply because our brains become accustomed to not dealing with discomfort. But discomfort is a part of growth and personal development. It's during moments of effort and perseverance that we truly evolve and experience a deeper, more lasting satisfaction. To restore this balance, it's essential to learn how to consciously handle discomfort and find joy in more challenging activities. This can include practices like meditation, mindful breaks, physical exercise, or even choosing to tackle a difficult yet rewarding project. These practices help our brains regain balance in a healthy and sustainable way, making the discomfort side of the scale more manageable and, eventually, a source of satisfaction that instant pleasures can never provide. Often, when we think about change, we imagine something grand and transformative. But the truth is, lasting progress comes from small, consistent actions. Every step taken, no matter how small, represents movement toward our goal. It might be completing a simple task or dedicating a few minutes each day to an important activity. These small efforts are the true building blocks of great achievements. Imagine you're climbing a steep mountain. Each small step is part of the journey. Individually, these steps might seem insignificant, but together, they make all the difference. Consistency is what keeps us moving upward and keeps us on the right track. Celebrating these small victories is essential, as they show that we're progressing, making the journey more rewarding and motivating. So, focus on the process and recognize the importance of small advances. This helps us stay motivated and makes progress visible. The result is real transformation, happening day by day. The growth mindset, a concept developed by psychologist Carol Dweck, teaches us that mistakes and difficulties aren't signs of failure, but rather opportunities for learning and growth. Unlike a fixed mindset, which views abilities as innate and unchangeable, a growth mindset values effort and perseverance. It helps us see challenges as a natural part of the development process. Rather than as insurmountable obstacles, we can think of development as a series of stages, each with its highs and lows. Just like on a long trail, there will be harder, more exhausting moments, and others where progress is more apparent. This metaphor helps us understand that each stage is important, and that difficulties are part of learning. Resilience is precisely what keeps us moving, even when the path seems challenging. To adopt this mindset in daily life, it's crucial to acknowledge and value our effort, regardless of immediate results. This could be when learning a new skill, overcoming a tough situation, or facing a personal fear. When we see effort as something valuable, we become more resilient and better prepared to face challenges. After all, growth comes from constant practice and a willingness to learn from every experience. We live in an era where content is abundant, but what we choose to consume makes all the difference. Choosing consciously what we absorb is essential for maintaining our mental health and personal development. Often, we let ourselves be guided by the algorithm, that invisible curator that doesn't always have our best interests in mind. When we let the algorithm choose for us, we lose control over what enters our minds, which can leave us feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from what truly matters. Consuming consciously means making intentional choices about what we spend our time and attention on. Instead of just letting the feed guide us, we can opt for content that nurtures our minds and helps us grow. Whether it's a book, an informative video, or even a meaningful conversation, consuming what contributes to our personal and professional growth makes us more engaged with our own goals. It's worth reflecting on our consumption habits. Are we actively choosing what nourishes us, or are we merely reacting to what pops up on the screen? By making conscious choices, we can turn our online time into something positive, not just passive consumption that drains our energy and motivation. Conscious consumption is a powerful tool for changing our relationship with the digital world and for using technology to our advantage instead of being used by it. How often do we catch ourselves saying, "I'm not good at this"? It's easy to feel discouraged when something doesn't go as planned, but there's a huge difference between saying, "I'm not good at this," and "I'm not good at this yet." That small change in perspective lets us see the potential for growth, reminding us that skills and knowledge can be developed. The yet carries a positive energy and opens doors to progress. Learning is built on small achievements. Maybe today you can't do something perfectly, but each attempt counts. By valuing these small wins, we create a sense of continuous progress, and that's what motivates us to keep moving forward. The yet reinforces the idea that we're constantly developing and that every effort, no matter how small it seems, has value. By recognizing the yet, we become more compassionate with our limitations and appreciate the effort involved. This change in mindset makes the learning process less intimidating and more engaging, providing the energy needed to keep advancing. Step by step, how many times do we catch ourselves scrolling through social media without even realizing we're doing it? Often, our attention is automatically captured, as if we're on autopilot, simply reacting to the stimuli that appear in front of us. Disconnecting from this automatic mode is one of the first steps to regaining control over our attention and directing it toward what truly matters. We can think of our attention as a remote control. This control can be directed wherever we want, but many times, we end up lending this control to the algorithm. Instead of choosing where to focus our attention, we're letting social media make that choice for us. Regaining control means making conscious decisions about how we want to use our time and mental energy. There are practical strategies to reclaim control over our attention. Disabling notifications is one. That way, you decide when to check your phone rather than being constantly interrupted. Scheduling specific times for social media can also be a good way to limit online time. Another strategy is practicing mindfulness, which helps us stay present and recognize when we're getting distracted. With these small actions, we can start training our attention and gradually regain control over what we truly want to focus on. Another effective approach is breaking tasks into time blocks, like the Pomodoro method. With this, you focus on a single task for a specific period, like 25 minutes, and then take a short break. This method helps avoid distractions and makes it easier to stay focused on what's important. Additionally, setting clear priorities and organizing tasks by importance helps ensure that we're directing our attention where it truly makes a difference. Regaining control of attention is a constant exercise. It's not an instant fix, but a habit that builds gradually. The more we dedicate ourselves to consciously directing our attention, the stronger we become at resisting distractions, and the more we can make meaningful use of our time. The key is to remember that each small victory counts, and that, over time, it's possible to reshape our relationship with distractions and reclaim the ability to focus on what truly matters. Procrastination can become a vicious cycle that's hard to break. When we put off tasks, we often end up feeling guilty and frustrated, making it even harder to start. This cycle of procrastination is like a chain holding us back, and the more we try to avoid it, the stronger it seems to become. The good news is that, with the right strategies, we can break this chain and replace the procrastination cycle with a cycle of action and achievement. One useful technique to overcome procrastination is breaking tasks into smaller parts. When a task seems too big and daunting, we tend to put it off indefinitely. But by breaking it down into smaller, more manageable steps, we make the process less intimidating and easier to start. Instead of focusing on completing a huge task, we can concentrate on finishing a small part of it, which helps us get started with less resistance. Another interesting technique is setting small rewards for completing tough tasks, encouraging our brain to associate effort with pleasure, making it easier to overcome inertia. Additionally, creating an environment that supports concentration is important. Reducing distractions, such as phone notifications, or designating a specific workspace are strategies that help create a more focused routine. Setting clear and realistic goals also helps make tasks feel more achievable and less overwhelming, reducing the tendency to procrastinate. We can imagine this process as a chain that needs to be broken, link by link. Every effort we make to start a task, no matter how small, is like a link breaking, opening up space for a new behavior pattern. By focusing on small actions and gradual steps, we start to weaken the procrastination chain until, eventually, we overcome it. The key is to remember that each small victory counts, and consistency, more than intensity, is what leads us to real, lasting transformation. Productivity shouldn't be just about doing more. It should align with our personal satisfaction and well-being. Often, we get carried away by the pressure to be increasingly productive, as if the number of tasks completed were the only indicator of success. But true productivity lies in finding meaning and fulfillment in what we do, in feeling that our actions are contributing to something meaningful in our lives. Finding purpose in day-to-day tasks is what turns productivity into something deeper. When we see a purpose in what we're doing, every small action gains meaning, and our motivation grows. This means it's not just about finishing an endless list of tasks, but focusing on the activities that really bring us closer to our personal goals and give us a sense of accomplishment. A good way to transform productivity into personal satisfaction is to regularly self-evaluate. Ask yourself, which activities truly bring me satisfaction? Am I dedicating my time to what truly matters to me? By reflecting on these questions, we become more able to prioritize what makes sense and brings us happiness, letting go of what merely consumes our energy without giving anything back emotionally. In the end, true productivity is what leaves us feeling fulfilled and connects us to what really matters. Big results often come from small, consistent actions. This is where the importance of micro-habits comes in. Small daily practices that seem almost insignificant but, over time, create a significant impact. These micro-habits are powerful precisely because they are simple to implement and maintain. And over time, they lead to real, profound changes in our lives. The key is consistency. It's more effective to do a little each day than to try to change everything all at once. We can think of simple examples that generate high impact. Reading for 10 minutes daily, walking regularly, or dedicating a few minutes to meditation are practices that, when repeated, bring lasting benefits. These micro-habits create a cumulative effect that enhances our well-being and helps us build a more balanced and productive routine. Imagine these small habits as seeds being planted in a garden. At first, it may seem like nothing is happening, but over time, these seeds grow and transform into something meaningful. Building high-impact habits is a gradual but transformative process that allows us to achieve our goals and live more fully. The secret is to start small, keep consistent, and trust that small actions, carried out continuously, have the power to create big changes. And so, with each small step, we're building something meaningful. Perhaps true transformation lies precisely in embracing these small advances and allowing them to guide us toward a more intentional and fulfilling life as we focus on conscious choices, create habits that make sense to us, and value each moment of effort. We start to see that change is already happening. Even if slowly, when applied consistently, these concepts become part of our daily lives. No rush, no excessive demands, just the certainty that we're progressing bit by bit. And as you continue applying these learnings, remember that each small victory is an accomplishment. Keep exploring, growing, and adapting these principles to your reality. because real change is happening with every decision you make. So, start today by taking the first step, no matter how small, and observe how these small choices gradually build the life you desire.